we've got the wonderful 9-box grid. Now, as we've just said, that you can't measure potential and you can't measure performance, and the 9-box grid tries to place people according to their potential and their performance, this brings the whole thing into question, doesn't it? And we do know we have been able to gather some data about what happens when you put people into various positions on the 9-box grid. Now again, this isn't empirical, it's based on lots of conversations with people in organisations, particularly on high-flyer programs. So, you put somebody in the top right-hand box, they're star performers. What do? Well, according to the research, the first thing that they do on average is to slacken off. They no longer invest as much energy in their development as they did before, or in their performance, because they've arrived. The second thing they do is brush off their CV because they're not being promoted fast enough, and go and talk to the headhunter. You put somebody in the lower boxes. What do? Once you've said that you're actually not very talented.
They're disappointed.
Very disappointed. So what do? They go and brush off their CV and they go visit the headhunter. The reality is that the 9-box grid has probably created more exodus from companies of talent at either ends than any other instrument that organisations have created. And I would say, at the moment you put people into a box, they begin to live up to that box. So if you put somebody into a lower box and say, this is how we see you, they will live up to your expectations. Lots of research around the psychology of that. So basically, what you're doing here is basically reducing the performance of just about everybody that you've measured and put into that process. I basically say, you only put people in boxes when they're dead. Now, how many of you actually use the 9-box grid? A few, okay. If you can use it as a vehicle, as a tool which people gather the data themselves and use that data for managing their own development plans, it can be highly useful. If you use it as a vehicle for judging people's performance, it's actually very destructive. So I'm glad to see so few of you actually use it. That's a real pleasure. So we need to align employee ambitions and organisational ambitions, and these are some of the things that we would do, or questions that we would ask. And I'm not going to go through them all, but the transition points near the bottom. Transition points are these points when people just feel it's time for them to be thinking about their next move and moving on. And if we can identify those transition points and have the conversations with them about their careers in time, they will be having the conversation in the context of what is my next move within this organisation, as opposed to my next move needs to be outside this organisation. But we do need basically to get these conversations going where people understand what the potential is for being with the organisation.